University of Washington head coach Chris Petersen just stepped down. Kind of out of nowhere. It was shocking. It was bizarre. It was weird to me. I have a couple theories about what happened and why it came from. Now, he was 54 and 26 as UW's head coach. And now this year has been a down year. This year, Washington is 7-5. But I immediately thought, when I saw what happened, I heard the news, I was like, is this real? There was another story out of the state of Washington that Washington State head coach Mike Leach is going to Ole Miss. That turned out to be false. Now, when I heard Chris Petersen resigned, I was stepping down. I was like, really? And no, it's totally true. He really is. And I had three theories. I was like, okay, there are three potential reasons why Chris Petersen would step down. Me and my friend were talking about it. Number one is that he was fired. Maybe UW said, we're tired of, we like you, Chris. We want to win even more. We want to get to the next level. You're not getting us there. And they forced him to resign. Maybe that's what happened. I don't think that's what happened, but it's possible that, hey, maybe they were just fed up with not winning. And they said, hey, Chris, we're going to let you leave on your own terms. We'll let you resign, but we want you out. We want to win more games. And the other thing that would support that theory is they were ready immediately to say Jimmy Lake is now the head coach moving forward. The other option is maybe something bad happened. Who knows? Bad stuff happens behind the scenes all the time. There's a reason why maybe that's the reason he stepped down. Here's the third reason. I think it's the most likely reason is that I was talking to my dad about this because Boise State, Chris Petersen was a longtime head coach of Boise State. He stayed there for 8 years. He was very happy there for a long time. And he left Boise State to go to University of Washington. And my dad and I were talking. I was like, hey, Dad, what if he just wasn't enough for him? What if he left Boise State expecting Washington to be incredibly fulfilling, and it just never was quite what he wanted? He played on the big stage. He made it to a college football playoff. He won the Pac-12 2 times. Maybe he just realized, hey, this experience isn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be when I left Boise State. That's possible. It's possible that Chris Petersen just said, hey, I thought this was going to be more than it was, and it's not. Now, I found an article that supports this theory, that third theory, and I think in my opinion, that's the most likely theory, is Chris Petersen's just a different kind of guy. There's an article on Yahoo Sports. It's by Pete Thamel. It supports my third theory. The headline says, inside Chris Petersen's stunning decision to step down, and then in quotes, he's not wired like these other guys. And first what it does is it details Chris Petersen's interview to be the head coach of USC in 2013. In 2013, USC was looking for a new head coach. The University of Southern California, they're in Los Angeles, and they interviewed Chris Petersen. And the takeaway from that meeting was that USC and Chris Petersen realized that they were a bad fit together. His personality wasn't what USC wanted and felt like they needed at the time, which is weird because Chris Petersen wins a lot of games, but the USC head coach is required to do more than just win games. There's a lot more that goes into that, sadly, because USC is a broken program. But they need a guy who brings in rock stars and famous people and shakes their hand and says all this weird Hollywood crap. And Chris Petersen he wasn't that kind of guy. And the article literally says that Chris Petersen was never going to become Hollywood. And then there's a quote from an unnamed friend of Chris Petersen. It says, he's not wired like these other guys for fame and money. He just likes coaching ball. And personally, I have always loved Coach Pete. I think he's awesome. I went to Washington State. I worked in the media there for Washington State. I was around Mike Leach, the head coach of Washington State, for a long time. And I have never been a huge fan of Mike Leach. I think his personality drives me nuts. I'm not a fan of him. In fact, after the Apple Cup on Friday, he went after and really attacked the guy, a journalist in the media, which I'm not one to defend the media very often. I think the media's the media's a big problem too with our world. But the way Mike Leach attacked a guy, it was personal, it was kind of inappropriate and felt weird. And every time I was around Mike Leach in college and my time in the media there, it just made me always appreciate the guy across the state at the University of Washington, Chris Petersen. Chris Petersen is mild-mannered, he's polite, and he loves football. It seems like he does it for the right reasons. I met Coach Pete at a camp in high school. And you got to understand that most Division I coaches are above, they kind of sit in their ivory tower. Literally, like a lot of coaches will literally just sit above and watch a camp, like in a box or in a building somewhere, and they'll just kind of observe the best players and take down notes. That's not a lot of D1 coaches let their assistant coaches do the dirty work when it comes to coaching football camps. And that is not at all what Chris Petersen did. Chris Petersen came down, was hands-on. He worked with all the guys. He was coaching guys in person, face-to-face, talking to them, encouraging them. And it was clear to me, like, okay, Chris Petersen just loves the game of football. He loves being a football coach. It's what he was built for. And to me, that's like, that's so good to hear. Chris Petersen always struck me the time I was around him. I met him one time. Like, I'm not saying I know the guy, but through the media, through interviews, and then the one time I interacted with him in person, it was very clear. This is a guy who just seems like a good dude who cares and loves football. And I look around at what Chris Petersen has done. He won the Pac-12 twice in his 6 years at Washington. He made the college football playoff one time. And I loved watching, when I was a kid, I loved watching Boise State, the blue turf. They had the Statue of Liberty. I loved watching Kellen Moore when I was a kid. And Chris Petersen was the head coach during all of that. And so I just want to wish the best to Coach Petersen. He seems like a good man. That's my sense I get. And I hope he finds what he's looking for. It seems like he left Washington, and there's something he's looking for. There's something that experience didn't bring him. And personally, selfishly, I hope that we get to see Coach Petersen coach again somewhere, because I loved his career. Has been fun to watch. I loved him at Boise State. He was a blast to watch at Washington. He's like a good guy, mild-mannered, who loves football. And I wish nothing but the best for Coach Petersen moving forward.